Ohio State wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba runs a 4.48 at the Ohio State Pro Day. Does that make him wide receiver one? Where does he land in the NFL draft? We'll discuss it next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's your boy, Damian Parson, on the ones and twos. As always, you can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over at the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And I got the champ with me every single day, 5 days a week, my boy Keith Sanchez. And you can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. Keith, talk to him, baby.
Man, what's up, Locked On family, man? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with thedraftnetwork.com, man. And listen, like DP always says, man, once again, man, 2019 national champion. Yes, those LSU Tigers, man. But you know why we're here every single day, 5 days a week, man, to bring you championship level content surrounding around the NFL draft, man. And today, guess what? We're in the state of Ohio, man. We're in Ohio, man, because we had the Ohio State Buckeyes. We had their pro day, possibly QB1, right? And then we possibly had a little trade go down with the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. So we're going to talk about both of those things. DP, let's start with Ohio State, man. Where you want to go with this?
Man, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Keith. You know, all the talk about this young man was his speed. We knew he route running, release package, hands, yards after catch. Everything else was fine. Everybody was wondering, where was his speed? Where was he going to test? Keith, per the charts from the pro day, he clocked in at 4.48. Keith, how do you feel hearing 4.48 attached to Jaxon Smith-Njigba's name?
I feel cool. Listen, man, and the reason why is this. If you listen to yesterday's podcast, we went in depth about 40 times in pro days, and that was one of the things that was like, hey, you know, that you can go back and forth on that because let's say it's home field advantage, right, for 40 times. But I will say this, man. If he came out and ran a 4.55 at Ohio State, I would feel much worse, right? So at least he ran a 4.48, so which means let's project it and maybe add half of a tenth of a second, which means he's a 4.53 guy, right? Which I'm cool with. I can take that, right? Like even if I'm adding on a half of a tenth of a second, a 4.53, I can do that, right? I can draft you top 20 with that type of with that type of speed. And then on top of that, DP, we have to look at it from this perspective, right? Like this is a guy, when we're talking about true wide receivers, nuanced, understanding the game, adjusting to the football, route running. Like he's A+ in every other box, right? A+ in every other box. Speed was the only concern. And I think that now that he's ran the 40, it's not so much of a concern. It's more so you change it to I can work with it. You know, it's one of those type things, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with Jaxon Smith-Njigba in that 4.48.
Yeah, Keith, I'm with you, man. Like I said, if it's an official and true 4.53, that's perfect. That's good for him because everybody was expecting him to be a 4.6, 4.7 guy for whatever reason. I didn't think he was that slow. So you know, I've been saying 4.55, 4.5 to 4.55 was that sweet spot for him, and that's why I believe he would run. And you know, of course, he couldn't run at the combine. I think what this also does for me, Keith, I never pegged and put him under that umbrella as he's only a slot guy. I never wanted to do that. I didn't want to limit this young man to, and like I said, we talked about it, right? There's nothing wrong with being just a slot guy. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it still has a negative connotation to it. I never wanted to label him as that because I've seen guys his build, his side, with his type of athleticism still be perimeter receivers because they have the game so nuanced, right? The release package, the ability to really fight through and win press coverage, win quickly, get vertical, get into their route stem so much quicker than receivers that run 4-3, but they don't have any of that, right? Like, you know what I mean? So when they're facing press coverage, Keith, do you feel like for you, is JSN a slot only guy after seeing this time, or is he somebody that you would feel comfortable testing on the outside?
Man, it's tough, right? Because we only seen him in the slot. You got to think, last time we see him play football, he had Chris Olave on one side and he had Garrett Wilson on the other side, and he was playing in the slot primarily. I'm more than sure that if you look at PFF, it's probably some ridiculous percentage where he lined up in the slot, right? So everything that we do outside of that is a projection because he didn't play this past year. So we didn't get to see him as an XY receiver or a Z, line up on the outside, beat press coverage, get vertical. And I think that's something that would have answered the speed question much earlier for people, right? Because if you would have seen him on the outside and he could have possibly won and then stack a receiver and get vertical, and you'd have been like, okay, he's fast enough, right? But it's still a question mark. So if you ask me, DP, like, where am I at with it? It's still a question mark, man. I have to be honest because I haven't seen it, but I do think this. He appears to have the footwork to be nuanced enough and to understand the game that I think he can win on the outside. Now, he will most likely, because just grading his athleticism, he's going to have to be a contested catch guy, right? Like, he's going to have to be a guy that can adjust to the football, locate the football, catch it over the opposite shoulder, just do different things like that. Back shoulder throws, right? That's going to have to be his game. And if that's his game, I'm perfectly fine with it because I know moving him in a slot, I'm getting A+ level play. Now, the question is this, DP, surrounding Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Do you trust? Is that enough for you to feel like he's wide receiver one in my offense and I can run my passing game through him?
I feel like that's tough. I would early on, I would rather have a solidified wide receiver one just early on, Keith. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think about, I want somebody like Seattle, right? Seattle, their wide receiver one is DK Metcalf. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, whether he's playing the slot or the Z, is a perfect complement, not even just to DK, but to Tyler Lockett as well. Because you could put Tyler Lockett in the slot and put Jaxon Smith as the Z, right? So I think that's kind of the situation where if he is your one, I want him to be 1B, not 1A immediately.
Okay,
and so I think that's why I'm at with it.
Let's do this real quick, and this is gonna be rapid fire, right? I'm about to pull up the draft order, and I'm not going to even do anything in the top, let's say top 10, right? So I'm going to start with the Bears, okay? And I'm going to ask you wide receiver one fit, whatever, right? And I just need you want me to say yes or no, right? And I'll go right behind you. So Chicago Bears they're sitting at pick 9. Would you like them there?
I would.
Philadelphia Eagles.
I would.
Tennessee Titans.
I would.
As wide receiver one because they have Treylon Burks.
No, not as wide receiver one. No,
okay.
No.
Houston Texans as wide receiver one.
No.
Okay, I'm going to skip the New York Jets. Well, I'll throw the New York Jets in there. The New York Jets.
No.
The New England Patriots. Would you like him as wide receiver one?
Yes.
The Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
Okay, the Washington Commanders, I don't think he'll be wide receiver one, maybe not even two.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
But I'll go, the last one I'm going to finish with is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's a very interesting match because they have George Pickens, they have Deontay Johnson, which are guys that are they more 2s than 1s, or they more 2.5s than
right?
Like where are they, right, with those guys? So that's an interesting question. Do you like him drafting him as wide receiver one with that pairing? Do you think that elevates the entire group?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's solid. I think it's solid for Pittsburgh because it it offers something different too. Deontay Johnson can go back to just taking the top off. You let Jaxon Smith work the underneath routes and in between, and then George Pickens is your 50-50 guy. So, man, Jackson, listen, like we said, at the end of the day, he definitely helped himself with his, with running his 40 time. I believe that he elevated himself. He solidified himself as he can easily be wide receiver 2 possibly in this NFL draft. And who knows if he's wide receiver 1, right? But DP, coming up next, man, we can't just talk wide receivers, man. We have to talk about a possible QB1, and let's talk about who that guy was, which team he was talking to at the pro day that we think that he's probably going number one. So coming up next, we're getting into QB1 and a possible matchup.
If you're on the go, on the travel, and you can't get a nice meal, you need something that's going to hold you over, guys. I promise you, Built Bar is something you want to try. It doesn't give you the fat and calories and all the carbs and all that stuff, but it is a good treat. It tastes good as well because it's made out of 100% real chocolate. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Built Bar gives you about 17 to 18 grams of protein per bar. You can get a variety of flavors. For me, I went over to my local Walmart and I went to the pharmacy section and bought a 4-bar box of the cookies and cream flavor. And you can also go to your local Sam's Club and get the 13-bar box if you want it more in a bulk. So, guys, I'm telling you right now, you want to give Built Bar a shot. But if you don't want to go in and you want to get some percentage off, just holler at us. Go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. That's BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your next order. Keith, QB1. Like, it's been ever since the Panthers traded up to the number one spot, right? The discussion's been a lot of reports, and they're looking at 3 different guys. And we're like, all right, so you moved up to number one to look at 3 different dudes? Like, what's going on here? But at the Ohio State Pro Day yesterday, CJ Stroud did his thing.
I didn't want to cut you off, but this is what it seemed like the Panthers did, right? They traded up to number one. They didn't even know if they wanted to do it, right? You know how sometimes on Madden you're sending out trades and then you're trying to see if that one's gonna work. Yes. And then I think it worked, right? And then now they're sitting with the number one.
Shocked the life out of them.
Yeah, it shocked them. And then it was like, well, let's see if we can trade out of this, right? And they tried that, and then they're like, okay, we're good. We're gonna stay here. And now we're picking up to the point, right? Like now we press and play to the CJ Stroud and Carolina Panthers, man. And there's been, if you checked on Twitter and checked everywhere else, man, there was some really interesting interactions between the head coach, CJ Stroud, and the quarterback coach was Josh McCown, right? I think it's Josh. Yeah. I get the brothers confused. And he's the QB coach over there, and them just talking, and people caught little kind of tidbits of, I think what it said something about when you get your home in Charlotte or something like that. So
we'll find a court and play ball.
Yeah. And then there was another quote where I don't know if it was the GM or the owner, but his wife was, CJ was talking about how his wife was telling CJ, like, hey, I've been, keeping my eyes on you, man, and make sure you good, stuff like that and everything. And, it seems like CJ is embracing being in Charlotte. So it's like all signs are pointing to Charlotte. I don't know if this is smoke and mirrors so they can eventually trade out of it, but it seems like all signs are pointing towards, Charlotte. I'm sorry, the Carolina Panthers drafted him.
No, listen, when I heard those quotes, like heard the audio, I was like, okay, if this is some smoke and mirrors, this is some magician type stuff, man.
This is some good smoke and some good mirrors.
Right. This is some legit good smoke and mirrors, because it really felt like not only that, but like the body language. Keith, you've been, like you said, we talked about yesterday, you've been at these pro days, right? You've seen coaching staffs that might talk to a player, but you could tell by their body language, they're not really interested. Like, whatever.
Let me tell you what was a key thing for me, man, because they're handshakes, right? And there's levels to handshakes, man.
Right.
And there's the stick your hand out, firm handshake, how you doing? Nice to meet you, right? Then there's the, you say, man, what's good? How you doing? How's the family, right? And then when you really know somebody and you feel comfortable with them, you dap them off, and then you kind of go in for the hug at the same time, right? Like it's the combination, it's the embrace, and that's what happened, right? It was the embrace. So that's what kind of led me. I'm like, okay, grading this handshake. This handshake appears to be, like they're really comfortable with each other when you're talking about a quarterback and an organization pairing.
That's exactly what. Not only that, but like the handshake, the squeezing of the trap, like it was really comfortable. It felt like guys who known each other and they haven't seen each other in a while. Like, man, how's everything going? I haven't seen you in 2 years. Man, bring it in. You know what I mean? It was a lot of love in those embraces, Keith. And I think I always go back to when we talked about it, me and you. Before Josh McCown got this job, he did a series with Underdog Fantasy on YouTube breaking down quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember watching I believe they did Will Levis, Bryce Young, and then, he got to CJ before he got the job with Carolina. And I remember watching that CJ one. He did the Ohio State versus Georgia game in the playoffs. And he was gushing, Keith. He was smiling ear to ear off of what he saw on tape from CJ. He was rocking really heavy with CJ. So when he got the job, the first thing came to my mind is like, man, if the Panthers can get in range to get CJ, I feel like Josh is going to have some say-so to Coach Reich. Like, hey, man, I love this kid. I think this is a perfect fit for this offense and what we want to do here. And truthfully, Keith, I think he fits very well. Now, again, we talked about, I would like for him to be, if he's drafted, would love for him to be thrown to DJ Moore. But there's nothing, it's fine. You have, TMJ, Terrence Marshall Jr.
You can't have it all, DP. You can't have the number one pick and DJ Moore,
you
right?
Can't, it's just, beggars can't be choosers. So it's all good. But like, I would have loved to see him, have that number one receiver. But they're bringing in Adam Thielen. I think Hayden Hurst at tight end. Man, Keith, I'm trying not to jump off that ledge and be like, he's going to the Panthers. But Keith, I truly believe, I never felt like this for a while. We talked about it last week whenever the trade was made. We felt like he was the one. But now it feels a lot closer like he's the one.
Yeah, man. And that's the feeling that I'm getting, right? And like we said, if it's smoke and mirrors, then it's the best smoke and it's the best mirrors, man. The best we've seen.
This is a Vegas show.
Yeah, man. Because it seems genuine, man. And I'll say this. I forgot about this coaching staff, man. I forgot about Jim Caldwell, Deuce Staley, right? Like there's a good support staff. And man, that's so important, because what people don't know is that they think that, okay, interactions, right? And that it's the head coach and then the offensive coordinator, and then you don't talk to anybody else, right? But when you have genuine coaches in the building, the running back coach could be extremely close to the quarterback, right? Like he could be like, and then you're talking about a guy like Deuce Staley that's been, he's played in the league. He's a veteran, played with some, good quarterbacks in his time. Like he can be a guy like in drills. Hey, CJ, look, you want to make sure you look out for the running back on this. And you're talking about, because what you're talking about is a young quarterback that's going to have a lot of money, and you want people to have his ear, right? Now you're talking about Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell, man, he's coached Andrew Luck, right? Like he's been in high octane moments. He knows what the right thing looks like, right? So I think that when I looked at this coaching staff even more, I was kind of like, I like it, because we all know, in the past with the Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, and it just didn't match and it didn't mesh. It didn't seem like either one kind of cared for the other, right? Yeah. So I was kind of hesitant about that, but looking at this staff, it looks more well fit for CJ and for just a young quarterback, period, to come in there and to prosper. They built this thing the right way. But I'll ask you this, DP, talking about quarterback and CJ Stroud going number one. How do you feel about him going number one?
I feel like because there's no there's no true slam dunk quarterback, right? There is no Justin Fields or no Trevor Lawrence in this class. I feel like, and you know me, he's my QB1 right now, personally. I have him, slightly over Bryce and ahead of A-Rich, right? I feel like he's the best quarterback in this class. And he's the best passer to me, but he also has, as he showed against Georgia, the mobility to really be able to give you what you need enough in the run game, off script type of stuff. He just has to activate it more often. So I'm fine with him being the number one, being the number one pick. Because at the end of the day, Keith, we know the saying is, if you have a guy that you want, you go up and get him. Especially at the quarterback position, you got to go get him. And they were sitting at 9, and I had no faith in my mind that CJ Stroud was going to fall to the 9th overall pick. So I'm perfectly fine with him being the first overall pick, because you're going to get a polished passer, a guy that has all the other everything you really need: accuracy, ball placement, arm talent, mobility. He has everything you want. Now it's all about being consistent and, like I said, activating the legs and using your feet when you need to, just encourage him to do so. But I think he fits everything they want to do in Carolina, and I like it, man.
Yeah, I like it too, man. It's growing on me, man, because I was not for it at first, but it's one of those things. It's like one of those songs, right? When you first hear it, you cut it off, and then you hear it enough times, and you're like, okay, I can buy into this, and then now you're singing the tune, man. But listen, man, that was Ohio State's pro day. We're talking about offensive guys, man. There were some defensive guys, just to quickly mention. We had Zach Harrison, Ronnie Hickman. There was an interior offensive lineman we didn't talk about, Luke Weipler. Center, interior offensive lineman, can play both. So, man, you're talking about with Paris Johnson, left tackle, right? One of the better pro days year in and year out to attend.
That clip you pulled out? Bro.
Oh man, you talk about those feet, man. The feet were moving, man. Check the feet, check the footwork, man. Check the footwork.
Yes.
If not, man, go check it out on Twitter if you didn't see it. How smooth he looks. He could possibly be offensive tackle 1. But like I said, man, Ohio State Pro Day, always extremely talented. Next coming up, man, we said we were staying in Ohio, man. This is an Ohio podcast, man. And we have a situation where the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets decided to spice things up again, get free agency back popping. And so coming up next, man, we're going to talk about a trade that'll happen and see how it hurts and affects each team.
The number one sports book in America is FanDuel. If you're a new customer, I have good news for you because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you have to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from money line, point scores, threes drains, especially for those NBA fans, guys. We have spreads, money lines, player points, rebounds, assists, you name it. FanDuel has it. FanDuel even allows you to combine your bets at a chance for a bigger payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Keith, when I saw the news, and I think I'm the one who told you about it. Like, if I remember correctly, I'm the one who told you.
That kind of slid so smoothly. I had no idea because what happened was everybody knew quarterback coach Quincy Avery. He put out some meme talking about the GM for the Cleveland, and I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
I didn't know what he was talking about either.
I didn't know what he was talking. And then we talked later on in the day, and you told me about the trade, and I'm like, that's what he was talking about.
Right. Elijah Moore is a Cleveland Brown, Keith, and we know that, Deshaun Watson taking over this starting job, coming off of the suspension that he had and everything, and we knew that they needed to upgrade. Elijah Moore is a nice upgrade in the slot, man. So now you have Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, your two outside receivers, and you put this dynamic route runner and run after the catch weapon, Elijah Moore, in this offense. And the trade competition was they sent the New York Jets sent Elijah Moore and a 3 in this year's draft, the 2023 NFL draft, for the Cleveland Browns' second-round pick. Keith, how do you feel about it, and what do you think what do you think the Browns? How does it affect the Browns draft situation?
Oh, it's great for the Browns. Great for the Browns offensively, man. Deshaun Watson has every style of weapon, and I know you always talk about basketball teams. He has everything, right? He has that 2-3 guard, right? He has that center power forward and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then now he has that quick, shifty point guard, that could get the job done in Elijah Moore. And not to mention, he has 2 running backs, right? And a tight end. So, listen, Deshaun Watson, like, it's all you to win the games, man. And the Cleveland Browns have one of the better rosters in the NFL. I will say this, though. After analyzing this roster, this is the one thing that's always been, well, I won't say always, but has been missing the past couple of years, interior defensive line. And that's why I was surprised they traded out of his position, because you're talking about being able to draft like a Keanu Benton or someone like that to be able to plug. I thought that he would be there at that selection, and that'd have been the perfect match, but they traded out of it. They went with Elijah Moore. Hopefully they feel like they can figure that thing out via free agency, or maybe they feel like some guys may fall. Maybe they think Apu Aika will fall, but they need to fix the interior defensive line position. For the New York Jets. Okay, go ahead.
I'm about to say, I was going to jump in. So, no, you're 100% correct. And then trading that second round pick, it gives them, so they what the Browns will have now, Keith, is, and they got to hope that some stuff falls. They're going to have 2 3s and 2 4s. You know what I mean? So, like, they still have some good compensation,
which is not bad.
It's not bad, but like you said, you got to hope that some of these defensive tackles fall so that you can improve your run defense and get some help from Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I agree. And let's flip the lens to the New York Jets, because this is a rather interesting move, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, Elijah Moore was part of the hype train to get Aaron Rodgers to town, and then now he's out of town, right? It's crazy. Life comes at you fast, man. Life comes at you fast. But they pick up another second round pick, right? So that gives them 2 2s. So at this point, they have a 1 and 2 2s. This has to be draft compensation. This has to be, trade compensation, right? Like something picking up additional stuff so they'll be able to trade Aaron Rodgers. And maybe, listen, they're looking at it like this. we won't send you our number one, but we'll send you 2 second rounders for Aaron Rodgers. Or maybe we can send you a 1 and a 2, and then we'll still have another second rounder. So that's how I looked at it. Like this is like, man, they still have to kind of off balance this thing. And listen, they need offensive line help, right? But then also, what do we keep saying with this draft? Those smaller wide receivers, there is almost like cheap about a dozen, right? Like they have a lot of them. They have a lot of small slot guys. So maybe they feel like, later on in the draft, one of those guys will fall to them, which is very, very possible, right? Like there's very possible that one of these Jaden Reeds or Tank Dell is able to fall to them in the third round or something like that. So if I'm looking at it, I definitely think that that's the perspective that the New York Jets had.
No, 100%. And plus, they also signed Mecole Hardman from the Chiefs, as a free agent, I think yesterday.
Yeah, which is
a 1-year deal. So you get that speed. Like, I agree with you though, Keith. To close this out, I agree with you. I think that this is just to send those picks over the air for the Aaron Rodgers trade to the Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to try and keep that 13th pick so they can improve the offensive line. Yeah. Say, hey, we're not going to give you 13, but you can have both. Both second round picks. And to be honest with you, Keith, and for all the family and the listeners, those 2 second round picks are 42 and 43. So they're like back-to-back second round picks, which will give the Green Bay Packers a first in 3 seconds to continue to build this team up around Jordan Love, who they feel confident in. So,
they'll go all defense anyway, right? They're drafting defense.
Keith said they're not even going to give him no help offensively. It's just going to be a bunch of defenders again. Man, listen, at the end of the day, it's going to be fun, guys. The draft is creeping up, and we're getting closer and closer to it. Thank y'all, as always, for making Locked On, NFL Draft your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go to Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, from free agency to salary cap management and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, we thank y'all so much. As always, you already know what to do. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to get the latest episode as soon as it's available for this podcast. As of Twitter, for Keith Sanchez, you can find him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.